Good morning, everyone. And this is Julian from Ansible Automation Platform Quality Engineering. And I'm going to try to make a side-by-side upgrade starting from Rel 7 Tower 3.8 up to Rel 8 Platform 2.1. But instead of using import and export, we are going to use backup and restore for the control plane. So this is the topology of our current tower instance. We have 3 tower nodes on the main cluster, and then we have access to 2 different data centers using 2 bastion hosts, and on each of those data centers we have two isolated nodes on an isolated group for each of the data centers. And we want to convert this on platform 2.1. And since in platform 2.1 we have the execution nodes instead of isolated nodes, I'm going to modify a bit the architecture we have. So at the end, our goal is to have a 2 nodes control plane that is not going to run any automation jobs from the customers. So we are going to deploy 2 execution nodes on the main data center to replace the ability we had to run jobs on the tower cluster. We are going to replace the SSH bastions with automation mesh hub nodes, and the isolated nodes are going to be converted to execution nodes. But instead of doing an in-place upgrade, we are going to do a side-by-side one, keeping the old cluster there. Our goal is to migrate all the job history, all users, credentials, everything, so that the customer experience during this migration is much smoother than otherwise. So let's start checking our cluster. This is the main cluster, the 3.8 tower on Rel 7. We have 3 instances on tower. We have 2 different isolated groups and 2 instances on each of them. And to make this more real, I already loaded some organizations here, some users. Some of the users are coming from LDAP, some others are local. We have credentials. Let me see. Yeah, we have a lot of credentials. We have some job templates. We have a workflow. And I ran the Firehose script we have to create a, you know how much? 100,000 jobs, more or less, to have some history on this instance. So this is the old one, and the first step on this process is going to be to back up this instance. So it's going to take a bit of a space. So I already made a network storage, and I'm going to store the backup there. So say during the backup we can modify the destination. So we want to put this on the shared network storage, and I'm going to use compression during the DB dump so it doesn't take so much intermediate space while we are doing the backup. With this flag, instead of making a plain text SQL dump, we are going to compress it, so it's going to be much smaller. The final backup, it's going to be the same because we are already compressing the backup, but this way the intermediate space that we need to perform the backup operation is going to be less. So I need to pass the backup flag. So let's start making here a backup. This is going to take a while, and meanwhile I'm going to start deploying the new cluster. So here the approach is going to be to use the upgrade process of the installer to upgrade our cluster, but we don't want to deploy everything using Tower 3.8. So we are going to deploy 2 VMs, Rel 8, fresh boxes, and I already installed their Tower 3.8.5 cluster with just 2 nodes. And this is going to be our final control plane. So, no, here. This is the new cluster. It's empty. There is nothing here. And I'm going to create here the 2 instance groups that we are going to use later. So on here on the real cluster, on the production one, let's say, we have 3 different instance groups. 2 of them are isolated groups. Actually, it doesn't matter. We are going to recreate these Portland and Boston instance groups before restoring the backup, but this time they are going to be plain instance groups and they are going to be empty. So I will create one called Portland and another one called Boston, and now we just need to wait until the backup finishes. Oh, it's here, the backup. Oh, it's